Hello, everyone. It's Ashley Proctor here. I am with Creative Blueprint and Coworking Canada, but today I'm here on behalf of the Coworking Idea Project. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Coworking Idea Project or who are new to the process, we are an international collective of coworking operators, associations, collaborative consultants, community organizers, and we're committed to making the coworking industry more inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible. We share a belief that by working internationally and collaboratively, we can have a ripple effect throughout the industry, that our actions matter, and that each of us have the opportunity to make decisions in our businesses, in our organizations, in our communities. And we often have the privilege or a platform to access a larger network who we can also influence by changing our behavior and by leading by example. These small changes lead to larger impact, and ideally, our market and our industry will begin to know better and to do better and to demand better. So each month we issue a challenge to the coworking world, to space operators and to their members to take an action, whether it be large or small, to collectively create conditions for a more inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible coworking movement and industry. So this month, we have invited one of our sponsors, DeskPass, to join us and to issue this month's challenge. And from DeskPass today, we have Sam Rosen. Sam, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your coworking journey and a bit about DeskPass.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you. I always enjoy talking to you and very, fortunate to be able to participate this month. So thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm based out of, I live in Oak Park, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago, which is where I grew up. I was reminded today that, my journey into co-working started almost 15 years ago. Where I came across the concept of shared workspaces and co-working in New York City, and ended up opening the first space in Chicago, which was called The Coop, about 14 years ago. And that was really when my journey with these types of spaces and communities began. I'm a technologist and a kind of designer by my background. So I've always been really fascinated behind really the tools and technology and processes behind, how we operate and manage and learn from these spaces that we create. So I started by building software to manage co-working spaces called Desktime. And that ultimately led me down this path of co-founding DeskPass, which is a tool that allows, today it's evolved over time as we've learned more about, the space, and the space has evolved. But really what we do today is we try to connect wonderful humans working for predominantly interesting companies to connect with co-working spaces all over the world. So we're in almost 170 cities in 18 countries, and we're growing on a daily basis.
That's great, thank you. One of the things I've actually always admired about DeskPass is the collaborative nature. It feels like an alliance, it feels like a collective of independent spaces, and it really is a way, I think, to allow independent spaces to compete on the same level as some of those multinationals or the larger companies with multiple locations. So very appreciative for DeskPass and you and your team, and for the sponsorship of this month's challenge. Why don't we dive right into the challenge then? There are so many things that you could have chosen for your organization to challenge the co-working world, and you've decided to challenge them to raise some money or to volunteer for those less fortunate in our own communities and in our own neighborhoods. So maybe you could talk a little bit about why that's important to you.
Yeah, I think, this is something that's been personally very important to me since I moved to the suburbs and had some babies. And it can talk about that, but it's really also, I think, to your point about DeskPass, one of the things that makes it so interesting is we get to be sort of this connective tissue between thousands of spaces all over the place, right? And these are tend to be, indie owned and operated spaces that are not just in sort of the central business district, but all over the place, in suburbs, in more urban environments, in kind of wealthy communities and less wealthy communities. And so we get a really interesting view of the types of people who need space and how they use it and why they use it. So, on a personal note, I just about the time when I was having my first child, I learned something that I think I actually heard before, but it didn't resonate until I was imminently due with a child. And it was that, depending on the number one sort of data point that somebody can use to predict how old you'll live, if you'll have married parents, if you will go to college, if all these very kind of factors that I think are really incredible, and they're all over the place, or the zip code of where you were born. And I live now in a community which is this wonderful, beautiful sort of utopian, diverse community that's 6 blocks from a really tough part of Chicago. And I remember thinking when we had our first kid, it was like if our kid grew up 8 blocks the other way, just by that one statistic, they would have so much less of just statistically speaking, an opportunity. And that's so, it's so messed up. So that has really driven me personally to think about this a lot and think about a lot of the inequities in our society, and how we can help bridge the gap and create a more equitable and fair and loving sort of community culture. And I think with co-working, one of the things that's so interesting is the good co-working spaces are in that community, are part of that community. So they're in a lot of ways like the first responders to different people and the issues that come up in their life. And it's a very kind of unique and interesting position to be. With DeskPass, when we started, we were really focused on a membership, and that membership was often the least expensive option to find shared workspaces within cities. And we found just that a fair amount of people who were leveraging the platform had issues around their own security when it comes to a place to live or food to eat, and realize how connected we all are in our organizations and in our little communities to really help people around you that you might not recognize or realize can use some support, use some love, use some help. So I just think we have a really unique vantage point and an awesome opportunity to support as homes of community and connectors of people.
Yeah, I think it's really essential that you mention the connection between co-working communities and the neighborhoods that they exist within, being part of that larger community. And I know that many of us already do this, but I want to repeat it here, that we're approaching this in a sense of solidarity rather than charity. This isn't just for those with less than we might have. It's really for anyone in need, fully expecting that at some point we might be the ones in need. And that this is something, as we've seen over the last couple of years, it's been a challenge for those members of our community who are experiencing poverty, who are experiencing houselessness, who maybe are experiencing food insecurity. And so I think it's really important as well that our co-working communities and co-working organizations like DesPass are taking action to support these groups, groups in the community who are already doing good work, to support individuals. So for some, that might look like volunteering at a local food bank. It might look like making donations to a shelter, or it might look like organizing a fundraiser within your own organization, an event at your space to collect goods. Each co-working space or member really, I'm sure, has an organization that means something to them in particular, or maybe a local organization that's particularly in need this time of year. And so, yeah, I really like the idea of bringing it back to the roots in the community, and sort of in the same sense of placemaking that we do with our spaces, making sure we're creating an equitable and just space for everyone in our community.
Yeah, I think if you aren't struggling with these things today, it's been such a tough few years. I think just to be a human. I mean, we talk about this with our team sometimes. Just if everything is going okay, I think it's perfectly acceptable today to be like struggling. You know what I mean? And then you put on these layers of complexity around, not having a consistent place to live, or not knowing necessarily where your next meal is going to come from. I think that these are just huge. These things compound. I mean, they just make a hard issue extra hard, and it's just, I think, a really important time to, I don't know, for us at all as humans to take care of each other, man. I mean, it's hard out there, and we need to take care of each other.
Yeah. We're going to add some examples of initiatives that these co-working spaces and our space partners might be able to take themselves to participate in this month's challenge. But I also want to highlight two organizations who are doing this, and we already know what they're doing, so we can share about those things. Office Nomads in Seattle, every year since 2013, I believe, have been hosting a challenge of their own, like a fundraiser amongst the members. And they have been raising funds for a local food bank. This year, I think the fundraiser has only been open for 2 weeks. And they're already at $2,600 of their $2,500 goal. And the fundraiser will be open for the rest of December as well. One of the ways that they get to their goal so quickly is that they call upon their members to reach out to their employers and see if there are any fund or donation matching arrangements in place. And so many of these members can make a donation and then have it matched by their employer. And so it's really helping to accelerate the fundraising. And I know Office Nomads members in the past have also come out in person and done a day as a group volunteering at these spaces, either serving food or sorting food. And so that's definitely, I think, an inspiration for many other spaces to have something so incredibly well attended and that always gets participation from the members, but also to do this annually for almost 10 years now. We think about the impact that that's had in their neighborhood, in their community over the last decade. It's really heartwarming to think about that and what we might do with this massive network of spaces around the world. So I did want to ask you about what you'll be doing at DesPass, and
Yeah.
And why.
Yeah. So, we've asked our team to take a day and do a day of service, and we're pretty, that allows everyone in our organization to take a day from work and do something, work with an organization that matters to them, that's connected to them, right? So, it's anything for like serving at a food drive or collecting donations or calling on behalf of a nonprofit. I think everybody's form of service looks differently and feels differently, and people have different comfortableness levels. But I think for us, it's an easy way that just encourages members of our team to step out and use that day to support the folks around them. So that's how we've focused our own energy, because we think that'll, we're a remote team. We have employees all over the world. So well, that means we'll have hopefully people in Buenos Aires and, Portland and Chicago and Miami and New York, all contributing somewhere locally to their local economy and their local community. And I think that's really important to us.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I like that you can also sort of summarize the impact by asking everyone, where did you volunteer for the day, and why is that organization important to you? And it really, starts conversations internally with your team, especially a remote team who isn't, in the same place every day. I really love that idea. Seeing people sort of come together over their service efforts. And also think it's really awesome as an employer to give people a paid day to use for service. It's something I think maybe more of us could think about doing with our staff teams as well.
We feel really lucky and privileged to be able to do that, and very supportive. Thank you, Ashley, for helping us kind of organize and figure out the really the best way that we can leverage our organization and our team to help. And this felt like a really good balance for people to spread the word internally and share externally, and hopefully it creates more than just the good we do for that one day.
Yeah, and I think as part of the challenge as well, we will include a document that's open to folks to add a link to either their fundraiser, perhaps a blog post about what their space is doing. And we'd love to see this collection grow over the month of December. And it would be a great way for others to find something too, if they'd like to contribute to another campaign. For example, I'll include the link for the Office Nomads campaign if anyone else wants to contribute to that. But as we go through the month, it'd be great to see what everyone else is doing, and we could all help in that sense as well, even to get inspiration about what different organizations are doing to take that back to our employers and to our teams as well. So thank you again for sponsoring, for contributing, and also leading the way by example with your team.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for everything you do for this community, and thank you for helping us do our part.
Great. We'll see you all in the new year.
Happy New Year.
Take care.